So here we are inside the shed. Lots of mess because it's a working shed. And I've been told to do it landscape. Okay, happy Lee? Lots of mess, computer. This is, if you can see it, my setup for putting my phone on. I stick it on the top here and it sits on a bit of soap. It's the only thing I've got. Okay, and I'll be weighing my oils and lye on here, and I've got to grab the crock pot. I've got some beer somewhere. Where did I put it? Oh, it's not here. Okay, go and grab that, and I'm going to flatten the beer, and then I'll show you the really scary bit, which is adding lye to beer, and it foams up and it tries to explode all over the place, so it's lots of fun. I will actually wear my safety gear for that thing, because that one actually does scare me a bit. So I'll be back when I'm ready. Okay, so this is my big bowl. This is my jug of beer, and this is my lye measured out. Now, to start with, it's fine, and it will just mix in. And dissolve fine. But as it starts to heat up, you'll see what I mean. And you really have to do it really slowly, because as it starts to heat up, and I'll grab my thermometer if I can, without dropping everything. Okay, at the moment it is 40 degrees, and that's dissolved in. As the lye reacts with any liquid, it heats up. And you can see the colour is starting to change there. And it's up to 55 now. So once it starts getting hot, that's when it starts to react. And that's when it starts to get a bit scary. You can see the colour changing. And you're glad you're not here because it stinks. Burning beer is not a good smell. Yo, there it goes. That's why you don't dump it all in at one go, and you do it nice and slowly, because if you dumped it all in at one go, you'd have it overflowing and into the container. So I do it in the container just in case it does happen to heat up too much like that and overflow. Let's see what the temperature is now. It's up to 74 degrees already, so you can see how fast it heats up. If it was just water, it wouldn't heat up as fast, and it wouldn't do that. The alcohol in the beer reacts with the caustic soda. The hotter it becomes, the more it reacts. This is why you should never ever add lye to a hot liquid unless you're doing it like this, very, very slowly, and because it's just heated up itself. If you added lye to hot water, you would end up with a volcano, and you could end up being very badly burnt. So that is now up to 81 degrees. That's Celsius. So that's my lye solution. So now I'm going to measure out my oils and put them in my crock pot, and then I will show you the rest of the process. Okay, so we are ready to go. What I've done is I've measured my oils in here. I can't give you the recipe because it is one that I do for a customer. So, but it's got 4 different oils. I've added 2 tablespoons of honey. Now usually what I do when I do a honey soap, I add the honey after the cook, and this stops the honey from burning and making the soap really dark. But for this one, I'm making it for myself to sell, and I want it to look different and smell differently to the customer's one. So what I'm doing is adding the honey to start with, and you'll see how it changes colour when I start to mix it after adding the lye. It's quite an interesting colour it goes. So let me grab my stick blender and we'll get into this. The lye is ready to go. The oils haven't really heated up, but I don't really want it overheated at all. So we've got our fully dissolved lye and beer mix. And yes, I've taken my gloves off because I can't stand them any longer. I'll just mix this honey in. Okay, and now we'll start adding the beer and lye in. At the moment the oils aren't hot, so they're not reacting with the lye as much. It's up to 40 degrees now. Usually with hot process soap you don't need to mix to trace. You don't need thick trace at all, because as it heats up it starts to thicken by itself. So usually all I do is mix it to emulsion, which that's emulsion because there's no different colours. It's all the same even colour, but you can actually see it changing colour as it's heating up. It's going more orangey, and once it gets to a certain heat it goes really orange. Like that. As you can see, it's sort of light trace at the moment, but you really don't even need to blend that long with hot process. In fact, for any soap you do not need to get trace to make soap. You only need emulsion. When it's completely mixed, there's no different colours when you sort of mix it through. If it's all evenly coloured, that's emulsion, and that's all you need. The actual process of saponification will thicken it up by itself, and it will also heat up by itself. With hot process you're just pushing the heat through it a little bit faster and cooking it right through to gel and full saponification. So I'm going to let that just heat up for a little while, and I'll clean my stick blender and let's see how it goes. I'll put the lid on that and we'll leave it for a minute. Okay, it's been cooking for a few minutes now, and as you can see it's starting to harden up. It's gone all firm. And with the crock pot, the heater's on the bottom, so it starts to gel from the bottom. But as I've said before, hot process soap does not take hours to cook. You only need to cook it to gel and when there's no zap. There's a 8% super fat on this, so there shouldn't be any zap once it's all cooked. So I'm also not the type that just lets the soap cook without stirring. I stir it. Stirring makes sure that everything's mixed and also gets the heat going through it. Just get off there. Let me get my cat. Okay, for a few more minutes it's gone and check it out. And this is quite normal with hot process, that it goes to almost a liquidy state. This is when it gets rather hot. It's 77 degrees at the moment. And that's basically going through a full gel there. Now I never worry if it goes really soft, because I know once it gets past a certain point it starts to cool down and it starts to thicken up again. You can at this point stick blend it if you want to. You have to be careful with hot process that you don't allow it to get too hot. Once it reaches almost 100 degrees Celsius, which is the boiling point of water, any water or liquid in it can boil over, and that's what makes volcanoes. This is why you shouldn't sort of do your hot process soap and walk away for any length of time, because once it gets to a certain heat it can volcano. So I'm just going to leave it there. You can see the difference in colour too, it's really dark now. So I'm going to let that cook a little bit longer. I might even stick blend it. Okay, so we're back and it's still quite fluid, but as you mix it you can see it sort of sometimes gets a different colour, and a lighter colour is sort of what we want, which is when it cools down a bit and starts to thicken a little bit more. So temperature now, temperature's dropping a little bit, so it's probably pretty much gelled. Once it's gelled, it just starts to cool down by itself, even though you have it on the heat. So what I might do is take a little bit and do the lather test and do a zap test and make sure it's done. But this is how long it takes to do hot process soap. Half an hour at the most. It's really, I actually did a cold process soap and a hot process soap in the same recipe one day, and timed them start to finish for both, and it took exactly the amount of time from measuring oils, letting things cool down for the cold process soap. Compared to the hot process, it took exactly the same amount of time from start to putting the soap in the mould. Now, as you can see, that's thickened up. I'm going to turn off the crock. And you can see it's still quite soft and a little bit fluid. It's not hard and dried out, which you only get if you overcook it. So I'm going to take a little bit and we shall do a little test. Okay, there we go. There's the lather test. I've just mixed it with a little bit of water and the lather within my hand, and as you can see there's heaps of lather. It feels really nice. nose up. Ugh. Tastes like soap. Okay, so that is ready. Now if you were wanting to put in any fragrance, I would put it in now, even though it's hot. I don't worry about the heat. So with this recipe, I don't add any fragrance to it. Just sort of smells nice and natural from the beer and the honey. So I'm just going to put that into my mold and I'll grab that. Okay, so now we know it's ready. We just put it into the mold. With hot process, it's not as fluid as cold process. So, I mean, you can attempt to pour it if you want to, but I find I usually end up with it going everywhere, so it's easier to just spoon it into your mold. I mean, it looks like pumpkin mash. It does smell really nice, actually. I like natural soaps because they just have a nice natural smell to them. Stomp it down so that there's no air bubbles in it. And as I showed with the pine tar one, if I want a smooth top on it, I'll just put some plastic over the top and smooth it down. But a rough top doesn't matter. The beer and honey one is more a man's soap anyway, and they don't mind if it's a bit rough on top. So that's our soap there. Sometimes you get dried bits from the sides of the pot. That's fine. Now once it's in the mold like this, it does keep the heat in it for a while. As you can see, it's a bit jelly-like. Okay, it's really smooth. Okay, and that's it. That's my beer and honey soap. And it smells great, and that'll be ready in 4 weeks.